She called him 17 times. 17 times while she was bleeding, while her body was failing, while their baby was fighting to survive. 17 times his phone lit up with her name. And 17 times he pressed decline because he was busy in a hotel room with another woman. Lillian Mercer died that night, 8 months pregnant, alone in a hospital bed, calling for a husband who chose his mistress over her final breath. But here is what her husband didn't know. Lily's father was a prosecutor, 32 years of putting criminals behind bars, 32 years of finding the truth no matter how deep it was buried. And when Walter Mercer discovered what really happened that night, when he found the hotel receipts, the text messages, the $2 million insurance policy, he made a promise to his dead daughter. The revenge he delivered shocked everyone, not with violence, not with rage, but with something far more devastating: the truth. Stay with me until the end, because justice has never been served this cold. The phone rang at 11:47 at night. Walter Mercer had been a prosecutor for 32 years. He knew the weight of a late-night call, the way it cut through the silence, the way it announced itself as something different, something wrong. Caroline stirred beside him in bed. Her hand found his arm in the darkness. "Walter," she whispered. "The phone." He reached for it. The screen glowed harsh and white against his face. St. Catherine's Hospital. His stomach dropped before he even answered. "Mr. Mercer?" The voice on the other end was professional, controlled, but underneath it, he heard the tremor. "This is Nurse Patterson from St. Catherine's Hospital. Your daughter Lillian has been admitted. You need to come now." Walter sat up. The sheets fell away from his chest. Cold air hit his skin. "What happened?" he asked. "She's 8 months pregnant. Is it the baby?" A pause. Too long. Way too long. "Mr. Mercer, I think it's best if you come in. How quickly can you get here?" 20 minutes, he said. "Maybe 15 if I run the lights." "Please hurry, sir." The line went dead. Carolyn was already out of bed. She moved in the darkness like she had done this before, grabbed clothes, found shoes. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "What did they say?" she asked. "Nothing," Walter replied. "They said nothing. That's what scares me." They drove through empty streets. The traffic lights blinked yellow at every intersection. Walter's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. His jaw was tight. His mind was racing. Lily, his only daughter. He remembered her at 5 years old, pigtails bouncing, running across the backyard with grass stains on her knees. She had looked up at him with those big brown eyes and asked a question he never forgot. "Daddy, will you always protect me?" "Always, sweetheart," he had said. Always. Now he was driving 80 miles an hour through the darkness, praying he could keep that promise one more time. The hospital parking lot was almost empty. Walter pulled into the first spot he found and didn't bother to straighten the car. They ran through the automatic doors together. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The smell of antiseptic hit him like a wall. "Lillian Mercer," he said to the woman at the front desk. "She was just admitted. Where is she?" The woman typed something into her computer. Her face changed. Walter had seen that look 1,000 times in courtrooms. The look people got when they knew something terrible and didn't want to say it. "Third floor," she said quietly. "The nurse's station will direct you." "I'm so sorry, Mr. Mercer." Sorry. Why was she sorry? They took the elevator because Caroline's legs wouldn't make the stairs. Walter held her hand. He could feel her pulse racing through her palm. Neither of them spoke. The third floor was chaos. Doctors moved quickly through the hallway. Machines beeped behind closed doors. A woman in scrubs ran past them carrying a bag of blood. Walter grabbed the arm of the first nurse he saw. "Lillian Mercer, where's my daughter?" The nurse's eyes widened with recognition. "You're her father? Come with me, quickly!" They followed her down the corridor, past rooms with curtains drawn, past the sounds of monitors and whispered conversations. The nurse stopped outside a set of double doors marked intensive care unit. "Your daughter had severe complications," the nurse said. Her voice was gentle but firm. "Placental abruption. Massive hemorrhaging. The medical team has been working on her for the past 2 hours." Carolyn made a sound, small and broken, like something inside her had cracked. "The baby?" I want the one Walter asked. The baby is alive, the nurse said. A girl, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. She's in the NICU as a precaution, but she's healthy. Relief flooded through him, then immediately drowned in the next question. And Lily? The nurse hesitated, just for a second, but Walter caught it. She's fighting, Mr. Mercer, but you should prepare yourselves. Prepare, what a word. How do you prepare to lose your child? They were led into a small waiting room. Chairs lined the walls. A television mounted in the corner played the news on mute. Coffee sat cold and forgotten on a table. This was the room where families waited to hear if their loved ones would live or die. Walter had put men in prison who sent people to rooms like this. He had never expected to sit in one himself. Have you been able to reach her husband? He asked the nurse. We've been trying, she replied. His phone keeps going to voicemail. We've left several messages. Walter pulled out his own phone, found Garrett's number, pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result, again. Nothing. 12 times he called. 12 times it went to voicemail. Where was Garrett? It was almost midnight. Why wasn't he answering his phone? Carolyn sat with her hands folded in her lap. Her lips moved silently. Walter knew she was praying. He wished he still had that kind of faith. But 32 years of prosecuting murderers and rapists had burned most of it out of him. The doors opened. A doctor in blue scrubs walked toward them. Her face was exhausted. Her eyes were sad. Mr. and Mrs. Mercer? They stood up together. Carolyn gripped Walter's arm so hard he thought she might leave bruises. I'm Dr. Thorne, the woman said. I've been treating your daughter. How is she? Carolyn asked. Can we see her? Dr. Thorne took a breath. We were able to stabilize her briefly. She's conscious now, but I need to be honest with you. She paused. The weight of the next words hung in the air. The damage was too severe. We've done everything we can. I'm so sorry. Caroline's knees buckled. Walter caught her, held her up. How long? He asked. His voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. Minutes, Dr. Thorne said. Maybe an hour. We can't be certain, but you should say goodbye. Goodbye. The word didn't make sense. Lily was 29 years old. She was about to become a mother. She had her whole life ahead of her. They were led into a room filled with machines. Tubes and wires connected Lily to monitors that beeped in steady rhythm. Her face was pale, so pale. But when she saw them, she smiled. That smile, the same smile she had given them at her wedding, at her graduation, at every birthday and holiday for 29 years. Mom, Lily whispered. Dad. Carolyn rushed to her bedside, took her daughter's hand, pressed it to her cheek. We're here, sweetheart, she said through her tears. We're right here. Walter stood frozen in the doorway. His daughter was dying, his little girl, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Lily's eyes searched the room, looking for someone who wasn't there. Where's Garrett? She asked. I tried to call him. I called him so many times. Walter's heart broke again and again. He's on his way, sweetheart, he lied. He's coming as fast as he can. Lily nodded weakly. Good, good. I need to see him. I need to tell him. Tell him what, honey? Carolyn asked. Lily's hand moved to her stomach. Monique. Even now, even dying, she was thinking about the baby she would never raise. Tell him I love him, Lily said. Her voice was getting softer, harder to hear. Tell him to take care of our daughter, and tell the baby about me. Tell her stories. Show her pictures. Make sure she knows. Knows what, sweetheart? Walter finally moved to her side, took her other hand. Lily looked up at him with those brown eyes, the same eyes that had asked him to always protect her. That I loved her, Lily said. From the moment I knew she existed, I loved her more than anything in the world. The machines began to change their tune. The steady beeping grew erratic, faster, then slower. Nurses rushed in. Doctors followed. Someone gently moved Walter and Caroline back. There was shouting, commands, compressions. But Walter already knew. He had seen enough death to recognize it. Lily's eyes had closed. Her chest had stopped moving. The woman who had been his daughter for 29 years was gone. The flatline screamed through the room. Carolyn collapsed against him. Her sobs shook her entire body. Walter held her tight. He stared at his daughter's face. Peaceful now. No more pain. But something else grew inside him. Something cold. Something that would not rest. Where was the husband who should have been holding her hand? An hour later, Walter sat alone in the hospital chapel. The stained glass windows were dark. No sunlight to bring them to life. Just shadows and silence and the faint smell of candle wax. He counted the panels in the window, 14. He counted them again, still 14. His phone sat in his lap. The screen showed his call history. 12 attempts to Garrett, 12 failures, 17 missed calls from Lily to Garrett, the nurse had told him, in the 2 hours before she died. 17 times she had tried to reach her husband. 17 times he hadn't answered. Walter stared at the altar, at the cross that hung above it. He had promised to always protect her. He had failed, but someone had failed worse, and Walter Mercer was going to find out why. The baby survived. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, a full head of dark hair, Lily's eyes, Garrett's jaw. Walter held his granddaughter for the first time in the same hour he lost his daughter. The weight of her in his arms was both blessing and curse. Joy and grief tangled together until he couldn't tell them apart. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "I'm your grandfather." The baby looked up at him with unfocused eyes. She didn't know. She couldn't know. Her mother was gone. Her father was missing. And her life had already begun with tragedy. Caroline stood beside him. Her face was swollen from crying. Her hands trembled as she reached out to touch the baby's cheek. "She looks just like Lily did," Carolyn said. "When she was born. That same little nose." Walter nodded. He couldn't speak. The lump in his throat was too large. A nurse appeared at the doorway. "Mr. Mercer, your son-in-law has arrived." Finally, 4 hours after Lily died. 4 hours after they had tried to reach him. Walter handed the baby to Caroline. "Stay here with her. I'll deal with Garrett." He found his son-in-law in the hallway outside the intensive care unit. Garrett was pacing. His shirt was rumpled. His hair was messy. His eyes were red but dry. "Walter," Garrett said when he saw him. "I came as fast as I could. What happened? Where is she?" Walter studied him. After 32 years as a prosecutor, he knew how to read people. Their faces, their bodies, their lies. Something was wrong with Garrett. "She's gone," Walter said flatly. "Lily died 4 hours ago." Garrett's face changed. Shock, grief, all the right expressions in all the right order. But there was something underneath. Something that didn't quite fit. "No," Garrett said, "that's not possible. I just talked to her this morning. She was fine." "She wasn't fine," Walter replied. "She had complications. Severe ones. She called you 17 times, Garrett. Why didn't you answer?" Garrett's hand went to his pocket, touched his phone, pulled it out. "My phone was dead," he said. "I was at a business dinner. It ran late. I didn't realize until I got back to my car and saw the messages." A business dinner at 11 at night. That lasted until 3 in the morning. Walter noticed the details. The slight wrinkle in Garrett's collar. Not from a long meeting, from being grabbed, pulled. The faint smell of perfume that clung to his jacket. Not Lily's perfume. Something sweeter, younger. "Where was this dinner?" Walter asked. Garrett hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. "The Harrington Hotel, downtown. A new client from overseas. We went late because of the time difference." Lies. Walter could smell them the way other people smelled rain before a storm. "I need to see her," Garrett said. "I need to say goodbye." Walter stepped aside, let him pass, watched him walk toward the room where Lily's body still lay. Then he noticed something else. Garrett's phone was in his hand. The screen was lit. And despite claiming it had been dead for hours, the battery icon showed 87%. Carolyn joined him in the hallway a few minutes later. The baby was with the nurses now, being monitored, cared for. "Something's wrong with him, Walter," Carolyn whispered. "Did you see his face? It was like he was acting." "I saw," Walter said. "His phone wasn't dead. He was lying about where he was." "But why would he lie? His wife just died." Walter didn't answer, but the prosecutor in him was already building a case, gathering evidence, preparing for a trial he didn't yet understand. Garrett emerged from Lily's room. His eyes were red now. Finally, he had managed to produce tears. But his phone was in his hand again. His thumb was moving across the screen, texting someone at his wife's deathbed. Who texts at a time like this? "We need to discuss arrangements," Garrett said. His voice was businesslike, efficient. "The funeral, the burial, I'll handle everything." "We'll discuss it tomorrow," Walter replied. "Right now, we should all get some rest." Garrett nodded. "I need to go home, get some sleep. I'll come back in the morning to see the baby." He left without looking back. Caroline gripped Walter's arm. He didn't even ask about her. The baby. He didn't ask if she was healthy, if she was okay. Walter watched Garrett disappear around the corner. No, he didn't. They stayed at the hospital until dawn, sitting with the baby, watching her sleep, trying to understand how the world could be so cruel. At 6 in the morning, Walter went to the cafeteria for coffee. The line was long. Tired doctors and worried families waiting for caffeine to help them face another day. He was stirring sugar into his cup when he saw it. Garrett's phone, sitting on a table near the window. He must have left it behind when he went to the restroom. Walter didn't think, he just moved, crossed the cafeteria in 3 quick strides, picked up the phone before anyone could stop him. The screen was locked, but there was a notification, a text message preview from someone named T. The message read, "I'm so sorry you have to deal with this. Come back to me when you can." Come back to me, not "I'm sorry for your loss," not "How are you holding up?" Come back to me. Walter's blood ran cold. Garrett returned from the restroom, saw Walter holding his phone. His face went white. "That's mine," Garrett said quickly. He snatched the phone from Walter's hand. "You shouldn't be looking through my things." "Who is T?" Walter asked. His voice was calm, deadly calm. "A colleague," Garrett said, "just checking on me after the news. Nothing more." Another lie. Walter could see it in the way Garrett's eyes shifted, the way his jaw tightened. "Of course," Walter said. "My mistake." He turned and walked away, but his mind was racing. T, a colleague who told Garrett to come back to me. A business dinner that lasted until 3 in the morning. A phone that wasn't dead. Perfume that wasn't Lily's. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed was monstrous. Over the next 3 days, Walter made phone calls to old friends at the police department, to former colleagues at the prosecutor's office, to investigators who owed him favors from decades of working together. He didn't tell Caroline what he was doing, not yet. He needed to be sure. On the 4th day, the answers came. Detective Raymond Cross was retired now, but he still had access to things that normal citizens didn't. Things like phone records, hotel registrations, security camera footage. "I found what you were looking for," Raymond said over the phone. His voice was grim. "You're not going to like it." "Tell me," Walter said. "The night your daughter died, Garrett wasn't at the Harrington Hotel. He was at the Birchwood, room 412, registered under the name T. Birch. Tessa Birch." Walter had already learned the name. Garrett's assistant at his investment firm, 27 years old, single. "How long has it been going on?" Walter asked. "According to the hotel records, they've been meeting there regularly for 14 months, sometimes twice a week." 14 months. Lily had gotten pregnant 15 months ago, which meant the affair started almost immediately after, when she was already carrying Garrett's child. "There's more," Raymond said. "I pulled the phone records for that night. Lily called Garrett 17 times between 8:41 and 10:33. He declined every single one. Declined, not missed, declined. He saw her name on the screen and chose not to answer. I also got the security footage from the hotel hallway. Garrett entered room 412 at 8:23. Lily's first call came at 8:41. At 8:43, the camera shows him looking at his phone. He presses something. The call stops. Then he goes back inside. Walter closed his eyes. The rage building inside him was unlike anything he had ever felt. Not in 32 years of prosecuting the worst criminals. Not in all the evil he had witnessed. His daughter had called her husband as she was dying. and he had silenced the phone so he could continue sleeping with his mistress. "Send me everything," Walter said. "Every record, every photo, everything." "Walter," Raymond said carefully, "what are you planning to do?" "What I do best," Walter replied. "Build a case." That night, he sat alone in his home office. The files were spread across his desk: phone records, hotel receipts, security camera stills. The evidence of a betrayal so complete it took his breath away. He looked at the photo of Lily on his desk, her wedding day. She was smiling at the camera. Garrett stood beside her with his arm around her waist. The happiest day of her life. All of it was a lie. Walter picked up his pen, opened a fresh legal pad, and began to write. He wasn't imagining this. The signs were all there, and now he had the proof. The funeral was held on a Tuesday. Gray skies, light rain, the kind of weather that matched the mood of everyone gathered around the casket. Walter stood beside Caroline at the graveside. He watched the other mourners, colleagues from Lily's job at the elementary school, friends from her book club, neighbors who remembered her as the girl who used to ride her bicycle down their street, and Garrett, standing at the front, playing the grieving husband. He wore a black suit, expensive, tailored. His face was arranged in an expression of sorrow. He dabbed at his eyes with a handkerchief. He accepted hugs and condolences with quiet dignity. It was a performance. Walter could see that now. Every gesture, every word, rehearsed and polished like a theater production. Tessa Birch was not at the funeral. Of course she wasn't. That would have been too obvious. But Walter had seen her name on Garrett's phone that morning. Another text, another message of support for the poor widower. The pastor spoke about Lily's kindness, her love for children, her excitement about becoming a mother. Carolyn wept silently. Her tears fell onto the roses she clutched in her hands. Walter did not cry. He had no tears left, only cold, burning purpose. After the burial, there was a reception at Lily's house, the house she had shared with Garrett for 4 years, the house where she had dreamed of raising their child. Walter walked through the rooms, touching things, remembering, the kitchen where Lily had learned to make her grandmother's apple pie, the living room where she had announced her pregnancy with tears of joy streaming down her face, the nursery upstairs, painted soft yellow, still waiting for a baby who would never know her mother. He stopped in front of the refrigerator. Photographs covered the surface. Lily and Garrett on vacation. Lily and her mother at Christmas. Lily's ultrasound image held up to the camera with both hands, her smile brighter than the sun. One photo caught his attention. Lily and Garrett at what looked like an office party. Garrett's arm was around Lily's shoulders, but his eyes were looking somewhere else, at someone else. A woman with dark hair standing in the background. Walter pulled the photo from the refrigerator, studied the woman's face. Tessa Birch. The affair had been going on right under everyone's noses, right in front of Lily herself. "Walter?" He turned. Caroline stood in the doorway. Her eyes were red and swollen. "People are leaving," she said. "Garrett wants to talk to us about the baby." Garrett. The name felt like poison in Walter's mouth. They gathered in the living room. Garrett sat in the armchair that had been Lily's favorite. He looked comfortable there, already at home in the life he was inheriting. "I've been thinking about what's best for Grace," Garrett said. "The baby needs stability, a routine. I think she should stay here with me. I can hire a nanny to help during the day." Grace, he had finally named her. Lily's daughter, born from her final sacrifice. "You want to raise her alone?" Caroline asked. "Garrett, she's only a week old. She needs family." "I am her family," Garrett replied. "I'm her father." The words hung in the air. Father, a title he had done nothing to earn. "We'd like to be involved," Walter said carefully. "We're her grandparents. We can help with childcare. Give you time to work." Garrett's eyes narrowed, just slightly, just enough for Walter to notice. "Of course," he said, "but I'll need to set some boundaries. I don't want Grace to be confused about who her parents are." Who her parents are. Lily was dead, and Garrett was already erasing her. Walter felt Caroline's hand on his arm. A warning. Don't react. Don't show him what you know. "Whatever you think is best," Walter said. The words tasted like ash. "We just want to be part of her life." Garrett smiled, magnanimous in victory. "I'm sure we can work something out." The next morning, Walter returned to his investigation. He had been careful so far. gathering evidence quietly, not alerting Garrett to his suspicions. But now it was time to dig deeper. He started with Lily's friends. Megan had been Lily's best friend since college. They had been bridesmaids at each other's weddings, shared secrets, shared lives. Walter met her at a coffee shop downtown. She was already crying when he arrived. "I can't believe she's gone," Megan said. "I just talked to her last week. She was so excited about the baby." "How was she?" Walter asked. "In the months before she died, did she seem happy?" Megan hesitated, her fingers wrapped around her coffee cup. "She seemed different," Megan said slowly. "Quieter, less sure of herself." "Did she say anything about Garrett?" Another hesitation, longer this time. "She mentioned that he was working late a lot, missing dinner, missing doctor's appointments. She said he seemed distracted." "Did she suspect anything?" Megan's face crumbled. "She asked me once, about 2 months ago. She said he came home smelling different. She asked if I thought she was being paranoid." Walter's heart clenched. His daughter had suspected. She had felt the betrayal happening, but she had doubted herself, dismissed her own instincts. "What did you tell her?" he asked. "I told her she was probably just hormonal," Megan whispered. "Pregnancy can make you anxious. I told her Garrett loved her, that she had nothing to worry about." She broke down completely then, sobbing into her hands. "I should have listened to her," Megan cried. "I should have helped her see, but I didn't want to believe it either. Garrett always seemed so perfect." Walter reached across the table, took her hand. "It's not your fault," he said. "The blame belongs to one person only." He spoke to 3 more of Lily's friends that week. Each one told the same story. Lily had been worried, uncertain. She had noticed changes in Garrett's behavior. But she had convinced herself she was imagining things, because that's what women are taught to do. Doubt themselves. Trust the men who are lying to them. On the 7th day, Walter found something that changed everything. He was cleaning out Lily's old bedroom at his house, the room she had grown up in, the room that still held her childhood books and her high school trophies. In the closet, behind a stack of boxes, he found a notebook. The cover was worn. The pages were filled with Lily's handwriting. It was her journal. Walter sat on the edge of her bed and began to read. The entries started 3 months before her death. They documented her pregnancy, her hopes, her fears, and slowly her growing suspicion that something was wrong with her marriage. March 15th. Garrett missed the ultrasound today, said he had a client meeting he couldn't move. I understood, but when I got home, his calendar was open on his computer. There was no meeting. Why would he lie? March 22nd. He came home smelling different again. I didn't say anything. I never say anything. When did I become someone who never says anything? April 3rd. Found a receipt in his jacket pocket, the Birchwood Hotel, a room service charge for champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries. He said it was for a client dinner. Clients don't order chocolate-covered strawberries. April 10th. I'm probably being crazy. He's stressed about the baby coming. Men get scared about becoming fathers. That's what all the books say. I need to be more understanding. April 18th. He forgot our anniversary. Completely forgot. When I reminded him, he apologized and said work was overwhelming. Then his phone buzzed and he smiled at whatever message he received. He hasn't smiled at me like that in months. May 2nd. Maybe it's just pregnancy hormones. I'm probably being crazy. Walter closed the journal. His hands were shaking. His daughter had known. On some level, she had understood what was happening, but she had gaslit herself, convinced herself that her instincts were wrong, that her husband was faithful, because she wanted it to be true, because the alternative was too painful to accept. He turned to the final entry, dated the morning of the day she died. I found her name today, Tessa Birch. She's his assistant. I saw the way she looked at him in the photo from the company picnic. I saw the way he looked at her. I'm going to talk to him tonight. I need to know the truth. Whatever it is, I need to know. She never got the chance. Before she could confront him, her body had betrayed her. The placental abruption had struck without warning. She had called him 17 times as she was bleeding, as she was dying, begging him to answer, and he had silenced every call. Walter set the journal aside. He walked to the window, stared out at the street where Lily had learned to ride her bike, where she had caught fireflies on summer evenings, where she had grown from a little girl into a woman who deserved so much better than what she got. The hardest part is knowing she probably suspected, and she stayed anyway, because that's who she was. He made a promise to her ghost, a promise as sacred as the one he had made when she was 5 years old. He would protect her memory, he would protect her daughter, and he would make sure the world knew exactly who Garrett Mercer really was. 2 weeks after the funeral, Walter discovered the money. He had contacts at the bank, people who had helped him during fraud investigations, people who were willing to bend the rules for an old friend with a dead daughter. The account statements told a story more damning than any confession. Over the past 14 months, Garrett had quietly transferred $50,000 from the joint account he shared with Lily. The money had gone to a separate account in his name alone. From there, it had been spent on jewelry, designer clothing, weekend trips to luxury resorts. None of these purchases had gone to Lily. Walter laid the receipts out on his desk. Earrings, $2,000. A Hermes scarf, $1,500. A 3-night stay at a ski resort in Aspen, $4,700. All charged during times when Lily had been home alone, waiting for a husband who claimed to be working. The $50,000 was supposed to be the down payment on a bigger house. Lily had told Walter about their plans just 2 months ago. A house with a yard for the baby, a room for an office, space to grow their family. Instead, the money had financed Garrett's affair. Walter picked up the phone, dialed the number he had been avoiding. Marcus Webb answered on the third ring. "Walter," Marcus said, his voice was cautious. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you." "I need to talk to you," Walter replied, "about Garrett, about what you know." A long pause, the sound of a door closing, then Marcus spoke again, lower this time. "I can meet you tomorrow. But not at the office. There's a diner on 5th Street, across from the old courthouse." "I know it," Walter said. 10 o'clock. Marcus hesitated. "I'm sorry about Lily. She was a good person. She deserved better." "Yes," Walter agreed. "She did." The diner was nearly empty when Walter arrived. Old linoleum floors, faded photographs on the walls, the smell of coffee and bacon grease. Marcus was already seated in a booth at the back. He looked older than Walter remembered. Tired, worried. Walter slid into the seat across from him. Neither man ordered food. "How much do you know?" Marcus asked. "Enough," Walter said. "I know about Tessa. I know about the hotel. I know about the money." Marcus closed his eyes. "I wanted to tell Lily. I swear to God, I wanted to tell her." "Why didn't you?" "Because Garrett threatened me." Marcus's voice broke. He said if I told anyone, he would destroy my career, frame me for embezzlement. I have a family, Walter. 2 kids in private school, a mortgage. I couldn't risk it. Walter said nothing. He understood fear. He had seen it make cowards out of better men. "When did it start?" he asked. "About 1.5 years ago," Marcus said. Tessa was new at the firm, young, ambitious. Garrett was her mentor. At first, it seemed normal, professional. Then the late nights started, the closed-door meetings, the trips they took together for client business. Lily was pregnant by then. She was 2 months along when I first noticed something wrong. Marcus stared at his coffee. They didn't even try to hide it after a while. Everyone at the office knew. We just didn't talk about it. Walter felt sick. An entire office full of people who knew his daughter was being betrayed, and not one of them had the courage to tell her. "There's something else," Marcus said. "Something I think you should know." "Tell me." About 6 months ago, Garrett started researching life insurance policies. Specifically, policies that pay out in case of death during childbirth. The words landed like a physical blow. Walter gripped the edge of the table. "He took out a policy on Lily?" he asked. $2 million, Marcus confirmed. "He did it quietly, used a different broker than the company's usual. I only found out because I saw the paperwork on his desk one day. $2 million, paid in the event of Lily's death." Walter had investigated enough criminals to recognize what this looked like. Not murder, perhaps, but something close to it. A man who had prepared for his wife's death, who had maybe even hoped for it. "Do you have proof?" Walter asked. "Documents? Records?" "I kept copies," Marcus said. Of everything I could find. I knew someday someone might need them. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope, slid it across the table. It's all in there, he said. The insurance policy, the financial transfers, emails between Garrett and Tessa discussing their future together. Once everything was settled. Their future together, once Lily was dead and buried and forgotten. Walter took the envelope. Thank you. I should have done more, Marcus said. I should have been braver. Maybe if I had told Lily, she would have left him. Maybe she would still be alive. Maybe, Walter agreed. But the blame doesn't belong to you. It belongs to Garrett. He stood up to leave, then stopped, turned back. One more thing, he said. Has Garrett mentioned anything about the custody of the baby? Marcus nodded grimly. He's planning to file for full custody. He wants to make sure you and Caroline can't interfere. Of course he was. Garrett wanted the baby because the baby was his ticket to sympathy. The grieving father, the single dad doing his best, a story that would make everyone forget who he really was. Walter walked out of the diner into the cold morning air. The envelope felt heavy in his hands, heavy with the weight of evidence, heavy with the weight of justice waiting to be served. He sat in his car for a long time, engine running, staring at nothing. Garrett had made one critical mistake. He forgot who Lily's father was. That night, Walter couldn't sleep. He sat in the kitchen at 2 a.m. The photographs from Lily's baby shower spread across the table, her face in every picture, glowing, trusting, so trusting. Carolyn found him there an hour later. She was wearing her robe. Her hair was messy from sleep. You've barely slept in weeks, she said. You need to rest. I can't, Walter replied. Not until this is finished. She sat down beside him, picked up one of the photographs. Lily opening a present, a tiny dress covered in butterflies. What are you going to do? Carolyn asked. Whatever it takes, Walter said. He let her die alone, Caroline. He let her die so he could be with that woman. Caroline reached for his hand. I know what he is. But Walter, promise me something. What? Promise me you won't lose yourself in this. Don't let the hate consume you. That's not what Lily would want. Walter looked at the photo of his daughter, her smile, her hope, her faith in a man who deserved none of it. I won't become him, Walter said. I won't use violence or lies. I'll use the truth. The truth is the only weapon I need. Carolyn squeezed his hand. Then I'm with you. Whatever comes next, we face it together. They sat there until dawn, two parents united in grief, united in purpose. Garrett thought he had won. He thought the worst was over. He had no idea it was just beginning. 3 weeks after Lily's death, the custody papers arrived. Walter held the document in his hands. Official letterhead, legal language, cold, calculated words that attempted to erase him and Caroline from their granddaughter's life. Garrett was petitioning for sole custody of Grace. The filing claimed that Walter and Caroline were emotionally unstable due to grief and potentially harmful to the child's development. It requested supervised visitation only, 2 hours every other weekend. Caroline broke down when she read it. He can't do this, she cried. That baby is all we have left of Lily. He can't take her away from us. But Walter had seen enough court cases to know that he could, without evidence, without a compelling counter-argument. The father of a child had enormous legal rights, especially against grandparents with no official standing, unless those rights could be challenged. Walter called his attorney the next morning. Patricia Whitmore had been a family lawyer for 30 years. She had handled custody disputes that would make most people's blood run cold. If anyone could help them, she could. What do you have? Patricia asked when she saw the evidence Walter had gathered. Everything, Walter said. He spread the files across her desk. Phone records showing he ignored her calls the night she died. Hotel receipts proving the affair. Financial documents showing he stole $50,000 from their joint account. An insurance policy worth $2 million taken out 6 months before her death. Patricia studied each document carefully. Her face remained neutral, professional. This is extensive, she finally said, but custody isn't about punishing a bad husband. It's about determining what's best for the child. What's best for the child is being raised by people who loved her mother, Walter replied, not by the man who let her die alone. Patricia leaned back in her chair. You know this will get ugly. Garrett has resources. He'll hire the best lawyers money can buy. He'll try to paint you as a vindictive in-law with a grudge. Let him try, Walter said. I have the truth on my side. The truth doesn't always win in family court, Walter. You know that as well as anyone. He did know it. He had seen guilty men walk free and innocent men convicted. Justice was never guaranteed. But this time was different. This time, it was personal. There's something else, Patricia said. Something that might help. I have a contact at the district attorney's office. If there's enough evidence of criminal behavior, they might open an investigation. Criminal behavior? The insurance policy, the financial fraud, and if Garrett knew about medical risks and deliberately kept them from Lily, that could be considered negligent homicide. Walter's heart pounded. He hadn't dared to hope for criminal charges. But if they could prove Garrett's actions contributed to Lily's death, everything would change. What do you need, he asked. More evidence, Patricia said. Medical records, testimony from her doctors, proof that Garrett actively discouraged her from seeking treatment. Walter thought about Dr. Thorne, the way she had looked at him at the funeral, the way she had hesitated before speaking, like there was something she wanted to say but couldn't. I think I know where to start, he said. Dr. Evelyn Thorne worked at the medical practice where Lily had received her prenatal care. Walter made an appointment under a false pretense, a consultation about a pregnant relative, anything to get through the door. But when he arrived, Dr. Thorne was already waiting for him. Mr. Mercer, she said, I knew you'd come eventually. They sat in her office. Medical textbooks lined the shelves. A photograph on her desk showed a family, 2 children, a husband, a life built on caring for others. I've been wrestling with my conscience since Lily died, Dr. Thorne said. There are things I should have said, things I should have done. Tell me, Walter said, please. Dr. Thorne took a deep breath. About 2 months before her death, Lily came to me with the concerns. She was experiencing unusual symptoms, fatigue, headaches, occasional bleeding. That sounds serious. It was. I ordered additional tests, a specialist consultation. I told her it was important to monitor these symptoms closely. Did she follow up? She tried to. Dr. Thorne's voice hardened, but Garrett kept canceling the appointments. He said she was overreacting, that the stress of the extra test would be worse for the baby than whatever might be wrong. Walter's hands clenched into fists. He convinced her not to see the specialist? More than that, he actively discouraged her from taking the medication I prescribed, said he had read online that it could cause birth defects. It wasn't true, of course. The medication was perfectly safe, but Lily trusted him. Did you document any of this? Dr. Thorne reached into her desk drawer, pulled out a folder. Every conversation, every canceled appointment, every time Garrett called to say Lily wouldn't be coming in. She handed the folder to Walter. I kept records because something felt wrong. I just never imagined it would end like this. Walter opened the folder. Pages of notes, dates, times, everything he needed. There's one more thing, Dr. Thorne said. A few weeks before she died, Garrett called my office directly. He asked detailed questions about her condition. What were the risks? What were the worst-case scenarios? How would we know if something was seriously wrong? What did you tell him? I explained the warning signs, the symptoms that would require immediate emergency care. He thanked me and hung up. She paused. At the time, I thought he was just being a concerned husband. Now I'm not so sure. Walter understood what she was implying. Garrett hadn't been gathering information to help Lily. He had been gathering information to know how much time he had. Will you testify to this? Walter asked. In court, if necessary? Dr. Thorne nodded. I should have done something sooner. Maybe if I had pushed harder. Maybe if I had insisted. You couldn't have known, Walter said. None of us could. But even as he said it, he felt the weight of his own guilt. The signs had been there, the late nights, the distance, the perfume that wasn't Lily's. They had all failed her. Every single one of them. That evening, Walter drove to the cemetery. The sun was setting. Orange and pink streaked across the sky. The headstone was still new. The grass around it hadn't fully grown in yet. Lillian Grace Mercer, beloved daughter, wife, and mother, forever in our hearts. Walter sat on the bench across from her grave. He stayed there until the stars came out, until the groundskeeper came by and gently suggested he go home. "I'm going to make this right," he said to the headstone. "I promise you, Lily, I'm going to make him pay for what he did." The drive home was long. The radio played songs that reminded him of her, of dances at her wedding, of lullabies when she was small. He pulled into his driveway, sat in the car for 47 minutes, engine running, couldn't bring himself to go inside, because going inside meant sleeping, and sleeping meant waking up to another day without her. Finally, he turned off the engine, walked into the dark house, climbed the stairs to bed. Tomorrow the fight would continue. Tomorrow he would take everything he had learned and build a case that not even Garrett's money could defeat. But tonight he allowed himself to grieve. The evidence was mounting. Walter had spent 4 weeks building his case, gathering documents, recording interviews, assembling a picture so complete that no one could look away from the truth. But it wasn't enough. He needed more. He needed something that would crack Garrett's carefully constructed facade wide open. And then the phone call came. "Mr. Mercer?" The voice was female, young, nervous. "My name is Rachel Turner. I used to be Tessa Birch's roommate. I have something I think you should know." They met at a park the next day. Rachel was in her mid-20s, brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. She kept looking over her shoulder like she expected someone to be watching. "I moved out 3 months ago," Rachel said. "Tessa and I had been friends since college, but I couldn't live with her anymore. Not after what she told me." "What did she tell you?" Rachel's hands twisted in her lap. She bragged about it, about Garrett, about their plans. She said they were going to be together as soon as everything was settled. What did she mean by settled? The wife, Rachel's voice dropped. She said Lily was too naive to see what was coming, that by the time the baby arrived, Garrett would have everything arranged, the house, the money, the insurance. Walter's blood ran cold. "She knew about the insurance policy?" "She helped him pick it out. Tessa works in finance, remember. She knows how these things work." Rachel looked at him with haunted eyes. I think she believed Lily's death was inevitable, like it was just a matter of waiting. "Did she ever suggest they were planning to make it happen? To hurt Lily deliberately?" Rachel hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe. There were things she said that seemed too specific to be coincidence. About the risks of late-term pregnancy, about how certain conditions could be fatal if left untreated." Dr. Thorne's words came back to him. Garrett had called the office, asked about warning signs, about worst-case scenarios. What if he hadn't been concerned? What if he had been calculating? "Would you be willing to testify about what Tessa told you?" Walter asked. "I'm scared," Rachel admitted. "Garrett is powerful. He could destroy my career." "He's already destroyed something far more precious," Walter said. "My daughter, her life, her future, all because he wanted to be free of her." Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I'll do it," she said, "for Lily, and for that baby who will grow up without her mother." The alliance was forming. Dr. Thorne with her medical records, Marcus Webb with his financial documents, Rachel Turner with her damning testimony, and at the center of it all, Walter, the prosecutor who refused to let his daughter's death go unavenged. But there was one more piece of evidence he needed, the most important piece of all, the video. Raymond Cross had mentioned it weeks ago, security footage from the Birchwood Hotel, the night Lily died. Garrett in the hallway outside room 412. "I've been trying to get it officially," Raymond explained when Walter called, "but the hotel is being protective. They don't want to be involved in a custody dispute." "Then we'll subpoena it," Walter said. "Once the court case is filed, they won't have a choice." "Are you sure about this, Walter? Once this goes public, there's no taking it back. Your family's pain will be on display for everyone to see." Walter thought about Grace, about the little girl who would grow up asking questions about her mother, about the stories she deserved to hear. "Some stories need to be told," he said, "no matter how painful." The lawsuit was filed the following Monday. Walter and Caroline petitioned for emergency custody of Grace. They cited evidence of Garrett's affair, his financial misconduct, his failure to respond to Lily's calls the night she died. Garrett's response was immediate and brutal. His lawyers filed a counter motion accusing Walter of harassment, of stalking, of using his former position as a prosecutor to conduct illegal investigations. They demanded that the evidence be suppressed, that Walter be barred from contacting any witnesses. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out, 3 weeks to prepare, 3 weeks to gather every last piece of evidence, and 3 weeks for Garrett to try to destroy everything Walter had built. The night before the hearing, Walter couldn't sleep. He sat in his home office, surrounded by files and photographs and legal briefs, the evidence of a year's worth of lies laid out in neat, organized stacks. Carolyn brought him coffee at midnight, sat down beside him. "You've done everything you can," she said. "The rest is up to the judge." "It's not enough," Walter replied. "Garrett has money, influence. He'll say whatever he needs to say to make us look like bitter old fools. Then we fight harder. We fight smarter." She took his hand. "Lily believed in justice, Walter. She believed that the truth always comes out in the end." "The truth doesn't always win," he said. "You know that." "Then we make sure it does this time." He looked at the photograph of Lily on his desk. Graduation day, her smile so wide, her future so bright. He would protect her memory. He would protect her daughter, no matter what it took. Outside the window, the first light of dawn was beginning to appear. A new day, the most important day of his life. Walter stood up, straightened his tie, put on his jacket. It was time to go to war. The courthouse was packed. Word had spread about the case. Local news outlets had picked up the story. A prominent investment banker, a dead young mother, a custody battle that promised to expose secrets no one wanted revealed. Walter walked through the doors with Caroline at his side. They were dressed in their Sunday best, dignified, united. Garrett was already there. His lawyers flanked him like bodyguards. His suit was impeccable. His expression was carefully neutral. But Walter saw the sweat on his brow, the tightness around his eyes. Garrett was scared. Good. Judge Patricia Holloway presided over the courtroom. She was known for her no-nonsense approach, her intolerance for theatrics, her commitment to finding the truth. "This is a custody hearing," she announced, "not a criminal trial. Our only concern is the welfare of the child. Grace Mercer deserves to be placed in the home that will best serve her needs." Garrett's lawyer spoke first, a polished man in his 50s, every word calculated for maximum impact. "Your Honor, my client is a devoted father. He loved his wife deeply. He is devastated by her loss. The grandparents' claims are motivated by grief, not reality. They have no legal standing to challenge a biological parent's custody rights." The lawyer painted a picture of Garrett as the victim, a widower trying to raise his daughter in peace, hounded by in-laws who couldn't accept their loss. Then it was Patricia Whitmore's turn. "Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Mercer is not the devoted father he claims to be. We have evidence of a prolonged extramarital affair, financial fraud, and perhaps most damningly, evidence that Mr. Mercer ignored 17 phone calls from his dying wife while he was with his mistress." The courtroom murmured. Judge Holloway's eyes narrowed. "That's a serious accusation," she said. "Do you have proof?" "But, we do, Your Honor. We have phone records, hotel receipts, and we have video footage." Garrett's face went pale. His lawyer leaned in to whisper something. Garrett shook his head violently. "The defense moves to suppress this evidence," Garrett's lawyer said quickly. "It was obtained illegally." "The evidence was obtained through proper legal channels," Patricia countered. "Subpoenaed from the hotel and the phone company. There is nothing illegal about it." Judge Holloway considered for a moment. "I'll allow the evidence. Proceed." The video was played on a screen set up in the courtroom. It showed the hallway of the Birchwood Hotel. Timestamp: the night Lily died. 8:23. Garrett walked into frame. He was smiling, relaxed. He knocked on room 412. The door opened. A woman's arm reached out to pull him inside. 8:41. The time of Lily's first call. Nothing happened in the hallway. 8:43. Garrett emerged from the room. He looked at his phone. His thumb moved across the screen, a gesture everyone recognized. He was declining a call. Then he turned around and went back into the room. The door closed behind him. The timestamp continued. 8:47, 8:51, 8:59. Lily called again and again, and Garrett stayed inside that room. The video ended at 10:33, the time of Lily's final call. The courtroom was silent. Judge Holloway's face was unreadable, but her eyes had hardened. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "would you like to explain what we just saw?" Garrett stood up. His composure was cracking. Walter could see it in the tremor of his hands, the way he kept swallowing. "Your Honor, I admit I made mistakes," Garrett said. "I was unfaithful. I'm not proud of it, but that doesn't make me a bad father." "Your wife called you 17 times while she was dying," Judge Holloway said flatly. "You declined every call. Why?" "I didn't know she was dying. I thought she was just being needy. She had become very anxious in the final months of her pregnancy. I thought she was overreacting." "Overreacting to dying?" "I didn't know she was dying," Garrett repeated, but his voice was weaker now, less convincing. Patricia Whitmore stood up. "Your Honor, we also have testimony from Mrs. Mercer's physician. Dr. Evelyn Thorne will attest that Mr. Mercer actively discouraged his wife from following medical advice, that he convinced her to skip appointments, to avoid prescribed medication." Dr. Thorne took the stand. She spoke calmly, professionally. Every word she said was devastating. "Mr. Mercer called my office several weeks before his wife's death," Dr. Thorne testified. "He asked detailed questions about the risks of her condition, what the warning signs would be, how long she might have if something went wrong." "What conclusion did you draw from that conversation?" Patricia asked. "At the time, I believed he was a concerned husband. Now I believe he was gathering information for other purposes." The implication hung in the air. Garrett had been counting down the days until Lily died. Next came Rachel Turner, nervous but determined. She told the court everything Tessa had confided in her: the plans, the insurance, the certainty that Lily would not survive to complicate their future. Finally, Marcus Webb took the stand. He produced the documents, the financial records, the insurance policy. "Mr. Mercer took out a $2 million life insurance policy on his wife 6 months before her death," Marcus said. "He didn't tell her about it. He kept it in a separate file. The beneficiary was himself alone." The courtroom erupted. Judge Holloway banged her gavel. "Order," she commanded. "I will have order in this courtroom." Garrett was on his feet, shouting at his lawyers. His face was red. The polished mask had finally shattered. "This is a witch hunt," he yelled. "They're trying to destroy me. I loved my wife. I loved her." "You loved her so much, you let her die alone," Walter said. The words cut through the noise. Garrett turned to face him. Their eyes met across the courtroom. For a moment, neither man moved. Then Garrett lunged. Security intercepted him before he could reach Walter. They dragged him back, pinned his arms. He was still shouting, incoherent now, all pretense of the grieving husband gone. Judge Holloway watched the scene with cold fury. "Mr. Mercer, you will compose yourself or you will be removed from this courtroom," she said. "One more outburst, and I will hold you in contempt." Garrett's lawyers managed to calm him down. But the damage was done. Everyone in that room had seen who he really was. The hearing continued for another 2 hours. Witnesses testified. Documents were entered into evidence. The full picture of Garrett's deception was laid bare. When it was over, Judge Holloway retired to make her decision. The courtroom emptied. Walter and Caroline sat alone on their bench, waiting. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, the bailiff returned. "The judge is ready to rule." They filed back into the courtroom. Garrett sat at his table with his lawyers. He wouldn't look at Walter. Judge Holloway took her seat. Her face was grave. "In the matter of Grace Mercer's custody," she began, "I have reviewed all evidence presented by both parties. I have heard testimony from multiple witnesses, and I have considered the welfare of the child above all else." She paused. The silence was absolute. "Based on the evidence, I find that Garrett Mercer demonstrated a pattern of deception, financial fraud, and callous disregard for his wife's well-being during her final months. His failure to respond to her calls on the night of her death, while engaged in an extramarital affair, raises serious questions about his judgment and priorities." Garrett's face was ashen. His lawyer reached for his arm. "I am granting temporary full custody of Grace Mercer to her maternal grandparents, Walter and Caroline Mercer. Mr. Mercer will be permitted supervised visitation pending a full investigation by Child Protective Services." Relief flooded through Walter. He gripped Caroline's hand. They had won. But Judge Holloway wasn't finished. Furthermore, she continued, I am referring this case to the district attorney's office. The evidence presented today suggests possible criminal conduct, including insurance fraud and negligent homicide. This matter deserves further investigation. Criminal charges, the words echoed in Walter's mind. Garrett was escorted out of the courtroom by his lawyers. He didn't speak, didn't protest. The fight had gone out of him completely. Walter watched him go, the man who had let his daughter die, the man who had planned to steal her baby and her money. He had lost everything, and the prosecution was just beginning. 6 months later, Walter stood in his kitchen making breakfast. Bacon sizzled in the pan, coffee brewed on the counter. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows. Grace sat in her high chair, watching him with curious eyes. Her grandmother's eyes, Lily's eyes. Good morning, sweetheart, Walter said. He spooned a bit of applesauce onto her tray. Are you hungry? Grace reached for the spoon, missed, tried again. Her determination reminded him so much of Lily. Carolyn came downstairs, still in her robe, her hair mussed from sleep. Did she sleep through the night? She asked. Almost, Walter said. Woke up around 3, just wanted to be held. They had become parents again at 61, not the retirement they had planned, not the golden years they had imagined. But somehow, despite everything, there was joy in it. Grace had given them a reason to keep living, a reason to get up in the morning, a piece of Lily that would never disappear. The criminal trial had begun 2 months ago. Garrett faced charges of insurance fraud, financial exploitation, and most seriously, negligent homicide. The prosecution argued that his deliberate interference with Lily's medical care had contributed to her death. The evidence was overwhelming. Dr. Thorne's records, Marcus Webb's documents, the video from the hotel, Rachel Turner's testimony about Tessa's bragging. Tessa herself had been granted immunity in exchange for her testimony. She had turned on Garrett completely, told the court everything, the plans they had made, the future they had envisioned, the cold calculation with which they had waited for Lily to die. He said it wouldn't be long, Tessa testified. He said her condition was getting worse, that the doctors had told him the risks. He said we just had to be patient. Patient, while Lily called 17 times. While she bled alone in an ambulance, while her heart stopped in a hospital bed surrounded by strangers. The jury deliberated for 2 days. They returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. Garrett was sentenced to 15 years in prison, 10 for negligent homicide, 5 for fraud. His assets were seized, his professional licenses revoked, his name destroyed. The house he had shared with Lily was sold. The money went into a trust fund for Grace. Tessa disappeared, changed her name, moved to another state. The last anyone heard her, she was working as a waitress somewhere in the Midwest. Her dreams of wealth and status had crumbled along with Garrett's. Walter didn't celebrate the verdict. There was satisfaction in it. Yes, justice had been served. But justice couldn't bring Lily back, couldn't undo the betrayal, couldn't erase the image of his daughter dying alone while her husband silenced her calls. Some wounds never heal. They just become part of who you are. He found himself at the cemetery more often now, sitting by Lily's grave, talking to her headstone. Grace took her first steps today, he told her, right across the living room. Your mother cried. I might have too. The headstone didn't answer. It never did. But somehow Walter felt like Lily was listening. I kept my promise, he said. I protected her. I protected your memory. Everyone knows the truth now. Everyone knows who you really were. And everyone knows what he did. A bird landed on a nearby branch, sang a few notes, flew away. I miss you, sweetheart, every single day. But I see you in Grace, in her eyes, in her smile, in the way she reaches for things she wants. He placed a fresh flower on the grave, a yellow rose, Lily's favorite. She's going to be okay, he said, I promise. She's going to know everything about you, every story, every memory, every recipe your mother is going to teach her. He stood up, brushed the grass from his knees. And when she's old enough to ask about her father? He paused. The wind rustled through the trees. I'll tell her the truth. All of it, because some silences protect no one. That evening, Walter sat on the back porch watching the sunset. Carolyn was inside giving Grace her bath. He could hear them through the open window, splashing, laughing, the sounds of a family rebuilding itself. His hands were in the soil of Lily's garden, the roses she had planted the spring before she died. They had struggled at first, wilted, refused to bloom, but this year they had finally flowered, red and pink and yellow, a riot of color against the green. Life continued, despite everything. Life found a way to continue. Walter wiped his hands on his jeans, looked up at the sky. The first stars were beginning to appear. Thank you, he said quietly, to no one in particular, to everyone who had helped them through this nightmare, to Lily, wherever she was now. The revenge that shocked everyone wasn't violence. It was simply the truth. And the truth had been enough. 1 year after the trial, the morning of Grace's first birthday arrived with perfect spring weather. Sunshine poured through the windows of the Mercer home. Birds sang in the oak tree outside. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass and Caroline's famous cinnamon rolls baking in the oven. Walter woke before dawn. He lay in bed listening to the sounds of the house, the gentle hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway, the soft breathing of Caroline beside him. Today, his granddaughter would turn 1 year old, 1 full year since she had entered the world. 1 full year since he had held her for the first time in that hospital room. 1 full year since Lily had taken her last breath. He slipped out of bed quietly, pulled on his robe, padded down the hallway to Grace's room. She was already awake, lying in her crib, staring at the mobile of butterflies that hung above her head. Her brown eyes tracked the movement. Her tiny hands reached upward. "Good morning, sweetheart," Walter whispered. "Happy birthday." Grace turned at the sound of his voice. Her face broke into a smile. That smile, Lily's smile, every single time. He lifted her from the crib, held her against his chest, felt her warmth, her weight, the miracle of her existence. "Your mommy loved butterflies," he told her. "Did you know that? When she was a little girl, she used to chase them all around this very yard. She said they were magic. She said they carried wishes up to heaven." Grace babbled something incomprehensible, reached for his nose. Walter laughed. "I'll take that as agreement." He carried her downstairs to the kitchen. The cinnamon rolls were almost done. Their sweet aroma filled the entire house. Carolyn was already up, dressed in her apron, flour dusted across her cheek. She looked tired but happy. "There's the birthday girl," she said. She wiped her hands and reached for Grace. "Come to Grandma, sweetheart. We have so much to do today." Walter poured himself a cup of coffee, watched his wife and granddaughter together. The way Caroline cooed at her, the way Grace grabbed at her grandmother's earrings, the love between them so natural, so pure. This was what Lily would have wanted. This warmth, this family, this home filled with love instead of lies. "The party starts at 2, Carolyn said. "Megan is bringing the cake. Dr. Thorne said she would stop by. Even Marcus Webb called to ask if he could come." "Marcus?" Walter raised an eyebrow. "I didn't expect that." "He feels connected to us now, to Grace, though. He helped bring the truth to light. I think he wants to see that some good came from all of it." "Some good." Walter considered the words. Yes, some good had come from the tragedy. Grace was alive. She was loved. She was safe. And Garrett was in prison, paying for his crimes every single day. The morning passed quickly. There were decorations to hang, tables to set up, food to prepare. The community center had been reserved for the party. Carolyn had insisted on a proper venue, a proper celebration. Lily would have wanted a big party, she said. Remember how she loved to celebrate? Every holiday, every milestone. She made everything into an occasion. Walter remembered. Christmas mornings that started at 5 because Lily couldn't wait. Birthday parties with themes so elaborate they took weeks to plan. The engagement celebration she had thrown for herself and Garrett. That memory stung, but Walter pushed it aside. Today was about joy. Today was about grace. By noon, the community center was transformed. Paper butterflies hung from every surface. They dangled from the ceiling on invisible threads. They covered the windows in colorful clusters. They decorated the tablecloths and the napkins and the centerpieces. A banner stretched across the main wall. "Happy first birthday, Grace," it proclaimed in purple letters. Beneath the words was a photograph of Lily, smiling, radiant, forever young. "She's watching over us," Carolyn said softly. She stood beside Walter, surveying their work. "I can feel her here." Walter nodded. He could feel it too, a presence, a warmth, the sense that Lily was not entirely gone. The guests began arriving at 2 o'clock sharp. Megan came first. She carried the cake herself, 3 tiers of vanilla and buttercream, decorated with edible butterflies in every color of the rainbow. "I couldn't find anyone who made cakes as beautiful as Lily did," Megan said. "So I took a class, learned to do it myself. This is my first real attempt." The cake was slightly lopsided. The frosting was not perfectly smooth, but it was made with love, and that was all that mattered. Dr. Evelyn Thorne arrived next. She brought a gift wrapped in pink paper, a children's book about a little girl who becomes a doctor. "Every child needs to know they can be anything," Dr. Thorne said. "Grace has the best possible start. 2 grandparents who love her more than life itself." More guests followed. Neighbors who remembered Lily as a child. Teachers from the elementary school where she had worked. Parents of students whose lives she had touched. The room filled with laughter, with conversation, with the sounds of children playing and adults reminiscing. Walter moved through the crowd, accepting condolences that had transformed into congratulations, shaking hands, exchanging hugs. "You've done an amazing thing," one woman told him. She was the mother of a boy Lily had tutored after school. "Taking in that baby, raising her as your own. Not everyone would do that at your age." "She's not just any baby," Walter replied. "She's my daughter's child. She's the best part of Lily. How could I not?" The woman squeezed his hand. Her eyes were wet. "Lily was lucky to have a father like you." Lucky. The word sat strangely in Walter's chest. Lily hadn't been lucky. She had married a monster. She had died alone while that monster ignored her calls. Her luck had run out on the night she needed it most. But perhaps some luck had been passed on. To Grace, who would never have to wonder if she was loved, who would grow up surrounded by people who cherished her. Marcus Webb arrived late. He stood in the doorway for a moment, uncertain, canning the room for a familiar face. Walter went to greet him, extended his hand. "Thank you for coming," Walter said. "It means a lot." Marcus shook his hand firmly. "I wasn't sure if I should, after everything, but I wanted to see her, to see that she's okay." They walked together to where Grace sat in her high chair. She was covered in cake frosting. Her face was a mess of purple and pink. She looked absolutely delighted. "She's beautiful," Marcus said. His voice was thick. "She looks just like Lily." "More every day," Walter agreed. Marcus reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope. "I set up a college fund in her name. It's not much yet, but I'll add to it every year. It's the least I can do." Walter looked at the envelope, at the man who had once been too afraid to tell the truth, who had found his courage too late to save Lily, but not too late to help Grace. "Thank you," Walter said. "Lily would have appreciated this." "I hope so." Marcus's eyes went to the photograph of Lily on the wall. "I think about her a lot. What I could have done differently, what I should have said." "We all think about that," Walter admitted, "every single day." They stood in silence for a moment. 2 men connected by a tragedy, by guilt, by the determination to do better. "How is he?" Marcus finally asked. "Garrett, I mean. Have you heard anything?" Walter shook his head. "I don't follow the news about him. I don't want to know. He's out of our lives, that's all that matters." "He's struggling," Marcus said quietly. "The other inmates know what he did. A man who let his pregnant wife die, who planned to collect insurance money. They don't take kindly to that." Walter felt nothing at this news. No satisfaction, no sympathy, just emptiness. "Good," he said flatly. "He deserves whatever he gets." The cake was cut at 3 o'clock. Caroline carried Grace to the head table, set her in front of the beautiful lopsided creation. Everyone gathered around, phones raised to capture the moment. They sang happy birthday, voices blending together, some in tune, some not, all filled with love. Grace stared at the single candle with wide eyes. She reached for the flame. Caroline gently redirected her hand. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Caroline whispered. "Blow out the candle." Grace didn't understand, of course. She was only one, but she puckered her lips and blew. A tiny puff of air that didn't quite reach the flame. Walter leaned in, added his breath to hers. The candle flickered, went out. Everyone cheered. Grace clapped her hands, delighted by the attention, by the noise, by the joy that surrounded her. "What did you wish for?" Megan asked the room. Walter didn't answer, but in his heart he knew. He had wished for Lily to see this moment, to know that her daughter was happy, to know that everything she had sacrificed was not in vain. The presents came next. Grace sat on the floor surrounded by wrapping paper and ribbons. She was more interested in the boxes than the contents. Every package became a toy. Every ribbon became a game. Books, clothes, stuffed animals, a toy piano that played tinkling melodies, a set of wooden blocks painted in bright colors. Each gift was received with enthusiasm. Each donor was rewarded with Grace's infectious laughter. The last present was from Walter and Caroline. It was a small box, wrapped in silver paper, a tiny bow on top. Walter knelt beside Grace, helped her tear away the wrapping, lifted the lid to reveal what was inside, a locket. Silver, heart-shaped. Lily's locket, the one she had worn on her wedding day, the one that had hung around her neck for years. Inside was a photograph. Lily's face, smiling. Beautiful. Forever preserved. "This belonged to your mommy," Walter told Grace. His voice was thick, threatening to break. "She wore it close to her heart. And now you can wear it close to yours." Grace reached for the locket, grabbed it with chubby fingers, held it up to the light. She didn't understand its significance. She was too young. But someday she would. Someday she would open this locket and see her mother's face. Someday she would understand the love that had been passed down through generations. Caroline was crying. Megan was crying. Half the room was crying. But these were not tears of grief. They were tears of hope, of remembrance, of love that transcended death. Walter fastened the locket around Grace's neck. It hung almost to her waist on her tiny frame, but it fit perfectly around her heart. "Take good care of this," he said. "It's the most precious thing I can give you." Grace looked up at him with her mother's eyes and smiled. The party continued until sunset. Guests departed slowly, reluctantly, each one hugging Walter and Caroline before they left, each one promising to stay in touch, to watch Grace grow, to keep Lily's memory alive. By 7 o'clock, only family remained. Walter sat on a folding chair, exhausted but content. The community center was a mess of cake crumbs and scattered decorations, but it had been worth it. Every minute. Caroline appeared with Grace in her arms. The birthday girl was asleep, finally defeated by the excitement of the day. "I'll take her home," Caroline said. "You stay. Finish cleaning up." Walter nodded, watched them go, his wife and his granddaughter, the two people who had given him a reason to keep living. He began gathering the discarded wrapping paper, folding the tablecloths, taking down the decorations one by one. The paper butterflies came last. He held one in his hand, purple and pink, delicate wings that trembled in the breeze from the open window. Lily had loved butterflies, had believed they were magical, had chased them across summer lawns with nets and jars and endless determination. Walter tucked the butterfly into his pocket, a keepsake, a reminder. The community center was finally clean by 9 o'clock. Walter turned off the lights, locked the door, stood in the parking lot looking up at the stars. 1 year, 12 months. 365 days without Lily, and yet she was still with them. In Grace's smile, in Caroline's strength, in the butterflies that hung from every ceiling, in the love that refused to die. "Happy birthday, little one," Walter whispered to the night. "Your mommy is so proud of you." A breeze stirred the trees, gentle and warm, and Walter could have sworn he heard Lily's laughter on the wind. The weeks following Grace's birthday brought unexpected developments. The district attorney's office announced that additional charges were being considered against Garrett. New evidence had emerged. Emails he had sent to Tessa in the months before Lily's death. Communications that suggested premeditation rather than mere negligence. One email in particular had caught the prosecutor's attention. Garrett had written to Tessa about the timeline, about waiting for nature to take its course, about being patient just a little while longer. The words were damning, not quite a confession, but close enough to raise serious questions. Walter learned about the emails from his former colleague at the prosecutor's office. They found them on Tessa's backup cloud storage, the colleague explained. She thought she had deleted everything, but nothing ever really disappears online. What do the emails say exactly? Walter asked. They suggest Garrett knew about Lily's medical risks, that he deliberately kept her from getting treatment, that he was counting down to her death. Counting down, like a child waiting for Christmas, except the gift he was waiting for was his wife's demise. Will they upgrade the charges? Walter asked. It's possible, maybe even probable. Second-degree murder isn't out of the question. Murder, the word hung in the air. Walter had always suspected. Deep in his heart, he had known that Garrett's actions went beyond negligence, beyond callousness. There had been intent, calculation, a plan. Now there was evidence to prove it. Keep me informed, Walter said. I want to know everything. The new trial began 3 months later. Walter attended every session, sat in the front row of the gallery, watched Garrett's face as the evidence was presented. Garrett had aged in prison. His hair was grayer. His face was thinner. The arrogant confidence that had once defined him was gone, replaced by something hollow, defeated. The emails were read aloud in court. I know it's hard to wait, Garrett had written to Tessa, but the timeline is clear. The doctors say her condition is deteriorating. It won't be long now. Another email. She's refusing to see the specialist again. I told her the stress would be bad for the baby. She believed me. She always believes me. And the most damning of all, Boone will have everything. The house, the money, the freedom, just a few more weeks. Nature will take its course. The jury listened in horror. Garrett's defense lawyer tried to argue context, tried to claim the emails were taken out of context, that Garrett had been expressing concern, not anticipation. No one believed him. The verdict came after 2 days of deliberation. Guilty of second-degree murder. Life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Garrett showed no emotion as the sentence was read. He simply stared straight ahead. Empty. Broken. Walter watched him being led away in handcuffs. The man who had destroyed his daughter. The man who had planned her death and waited patiently for it to happen. Justice had been served. Finally, completely. But Walter felt no triumph, no satisfaction. Lily was still dead. No verdict could change that. No punishment could bring her back. He left the courthouse alone, walked to his car, sat behind the wheel for a long time. The sun was setting, orange and gold streaked across the sky, beautiful and indifferent. Walter drove to the cemetery. He sat by Lily's grave as darkness fell, told her about the trial, about the verdict, about the justice she would never witness. He's going to prison for the rest of his life, Walter said. He'll die in there, alone, forgotten, just like he deserves. The headstone was silent. Of course it was. But Walter felt something. A lightness, a release, the weight he had been carrying for so long finally beginning to lift. I can let go now, he said, not of you, never of you, but of the anger, the need for revenge. It's done, it's finally done. He placed a yellow rose on the grave, Lily's favorite of Brahm. He had brought one every week for the past year. Grace is doing so well, he continued. She's walking now, almost running. Your mother can barely keep up with her. She has your stubborn streak, your determination. She's going to be just like you. A firefly appeared, blinking in the darkness, the first of the summer season. Walter watched it dance across the headstone, remembering all the summer nights when Lily had chased these same lights across this same lawn. I miss you, sweetheart, he said, every single day. But I know you're at peace now. I know you're watching over us, and I promise you, I will never stop taking care of your little girl. He stood up, brushed the grass from his knees. I love you, Lily, forever and always. The drive home was quiet. The radio played soft music, songs that reminded him of better times, of a daughter who was alive, of a future that was full of promise. Those days were gone. They would never return. But new days had come, days filled with Grace's laughter, with Caroline's love, with the hope that life could still be good despite everything. Walter pulled into his driveway, saw the lights glowing in the windows, the silhouette of Caroline moving in the kitchen. Home. This was home. He walked through the door, found Caroline and Grace in the living room. They were playing with building blocks, stacking them up just to knock them down. Grace saw him, shrieked with joy, crawled toward him as fast as her little legs could move. Walter scooped her up, held her tight, felt her heartbeat against his chest. "The trial is over," he told Caroline. "Life in prison. He's never getting out." Caroline closed her eyes. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Thank God. It's finally over. It was over. The nightmare that had consumed them for nearly 2 years was finally over, and life could begin again. 5 years later, the morning of Grace's 6th birthday dawned bright and clear. Walter stood at the kitchen window, coffee cup in hand, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. He was 66 years old now. His hair had gone completely gray. His joints ached when the weather changed. He moved slower than he used to, thought longer before he spoke, but he had never been happier. Grace had transformed their lives, filled their home with noise and calm and boundless energy. Every day with her was an adventure. Every moment was a gift. He heard her footsteps on the stairs. Thump, thump, thump. She always ran, never walked. There wasn't time for walking. Too much to see, too much to do. "Grandpa," she shouted as she burst into the kitchen. "It's my birthday. I'm 6 years old." Walter set down his coffee, opened his arms, caught her as she launched herself toward him. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," he said. He swung her around the way she loved, set her down on the counter. 6 years old. I can't believe it. You're practically a grown-up." "I'm not a grown-up," Grace protested. "Grown-ups can't have birthday parties with bouncy castles." Walter laughed. "Fair point, but you're getting so big. Soon you'll be taller than me." "Nobody's taller than you, Grandpa. You're the tallest person in the whole world. Only because you haven't met any basketball players yet." Grace considered this information seriously. She took everything seriously. Every fact was important. Every question deserved an answer. Caroline appeared in the doorway. She was already dressed for the day, her hair neatly styled, her apron freshly tied. "There's my birthday girl," she said. "Are you ready for pancakes? I made the special ones, with chocolate chips and whipped cream." Grace's eyes went wide. "With strawberries too?" "Of course with strawberries. What kind of grandmother do you think I am?" She scrambled off the counter, ran to her chair at the table, bounced impatiently while Caroline served the pancakes. Walter watched them together, the easy love between them, the comfort and familiarity that came from 5 years of shared life. This was what Lily had wanted, this warmth, this family, this home full of laughter and chocolate chip pancakes. The birthday party was scheduled for the afternoon. Grace's friends from kindergarten would be coming. A dozen 6-year-olds fueled by sugar and excitement. The bouncy castle had already been set up in the backyard. The tables were covered with butterfly-themed decorations. The cake was waiting in the refrigerator. 3 tiers this time. Megan had gotten much better at baking over the years. But before the chaos of the party, there was a tradition to observe. Every year on Grace's birthday, Walter took her to visit Lily's grave. It had started on her first birthday, a quiet moment before the celebration, a chance to connect with the mother she would never know, to share the joy of another year with the woman who had given everything for her. Grace didn't fully understand at first. She was too young. But as she grew, she began to grasp the significance, the importance of remembering, the power of love that transcended death. "Are we going to see Mommy today?" Grace asked as she finished her pancakes. "We are," Walter confirmed, "just like every year." "Can I bring her flowers? The yellow ones she likes?" "We'll stop at the florist on the way." Grace nodded solemnly. She took these visits seriously, with the gravity of a child who understands that something precious was lost, something that can never be replaced. They left the house at 10 o'clock. Walter drove slowly through the familiar streets, past the elementary school where Lily had worked, past the church where she had been married, past the park where she had played as a child. Every corner held a memory. Every building told a story. Grace sat in the back seat, looking out the window. Her locket hung around her neck. She wore it everywhere now. The photograph of Lily close to her heart. "Grandpa," she said, "can I ask you something?" "Anything, sweetheart." "Was Mommy happy before she went to heaven?" Walter considered the question carefully. Grace deserved the truth, but some truths needed to be delivered gently. "She was very happy about you," he said, "from the moment she knew you were coming. She talked about you all the time. She planned your nursery. She picked out your name. She couldn't wait to meet you." "What about other times? Was she happy then too?" Walter looked at her in the rearview mirror. Her brown eyes were serious, searching. "Your mother had a beautiful smile," he said, "and she shared it with everyone. She found joy in little things, butterflies, sunshine, chocolate chip pancakes. She knew how to be happy. It wasn't a lie. It wasn't the whole truth either, but it was what a 6-year-old needed to hear." They stopped at the florist. Grace chose the flowers herself, yellow roses, a dozen of them, Lily's favorite. The cemetery was quiet when they arrived. They walked together down the familiar path, past rows of headstones, past names and dates that told stories of lives lived and lost. Lily's grave was in the newer section. The grass had grown thick and green around it. The headstone was clean and polished. Carolyn came every week to tend it. Grace knelt beside the grave, placed the flowers carefully at the base of the headstone. "Happy birthday to me, Mommy," she said. "I'm 6 years old today. I'm in first grade now. My teacher's name is Mrs. Patterson. She's really nice. She lets us have extra recess on Fridays." Walter stood back. Good. Let Grace have her moment, her conversation with the mother she had never known. "Grandma is making a big cake for my party," Grace continued. "It has butterflies on it. Real butterflies made of sugar. I wanted to save one for you, but Grandma said it would melt." She reached out, touched the letters carved into the stone, traced the shape of Lily's name with her finger. "I miss you," she said softly, "even though I never met you. Is that weird? Grandpa says it's okay to miss someone you never met. He says love doesn't need memories. It just is." Walter felt his eyes fill with tears. He didn't try to stop them. Tears were part of grief, part of healing, part of love. Grace turned to look at him. Her own eyes were wet. "Do you think she can hear me, Grandpa?" Walter knelt beside her, put his arm around her shoulders. "I think she hears every word," he said. "I think she's been listening to you since the day you were born, and I think she's so proud of the person you're becoming." "Oui," Grace nodded, satisfied. She leaned against him for a moment, drew strength from his presence. "I brought something else," she said. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper. "What is it?" Walter asked. "A picture I drew for Mommy." She unfolded the paper, showed him. It was a drawing done in crayon. A house with a yellow door, a garden full of flowers, 2 big figures and 1 small figure standing in front. "That's you and Grandma," Grace explained. "And that's me. And up here," she pointed to the top of the page, to a figure surrounded by clouds and butterflies. "That's Mommy, watching over us." Walter's heart swelled. He pulled Grace close, held her tight. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. She's going to love it." Grace placed the drawing beside the flowers, weighed it down with a small stone so it wouldn't blow away. They stayed at the grave for a while longer, sitting in companionable silence, watching the clouds drift across the sky. Finally, Grace stood up, brushed the grass from her dress. "Okay, Mommy," she said. "I have to go now. My party starts soon, but I'll come back and tell you all about it. I promise." She kissed her fingers, pressed them to the headstone. "I love you, forever and always." Walter's own words, spoken back to him through his granddaughter's voice. They walked back to the car together, hand in hand. "Grandpa," Grace said, "I know you're sad when we come here, but I think it's good sad." "Is that a thing? Good sad?" "That's exactly what it is," Walter replied. "We're sad because we miss her, but we're happy because we got to love her and because she loved us back." Grace considered this. "I wish I had memories of her. Real memories, Not just stories. The stories are her gift to you, John, Walter said. Every story I tell you, every memory I share, that's Mommy giving you something precious, something that belongs to you now. Will you tell me more stories today, after the party? As many as you want. I have a whole lifetime of stories to tell you. The party was everything a 6-year-old could dream of. 12 children invaded the backyard, screaming with joy as they discovered the bouncy castle, chasing each other across the lawn, playing games that had no rules and required no explanations. Parents lingered nearby, drinking lemonade, catching up on neighborhood gossip, watching their children with the weary contentment of people who have survived another year of parenting. Walter stayed on the periphery, not quite part of the chaos, but not separate from it either. He manned the grill, produced hot dogs and hamburgers in quantities that seemed impossible, fielded requests for more ketchup and fewer pickles and drinks that were not quite cold enough. Carolyn coordinated everything else: the games, the presents, the cake. She moved through the party like a general commanding an army, calm, competent, completely in control. Megan arrived late, carrying a gift wrapped in purple paper. "Sorry," she said breathlessly. "Traffic was insane. Did I miss the cake?" "You're just in time," Walter told her. "We're cutting it in 10 minutes. Megan found a seat beside him. They watched the children together. The pure and filtered joy of being young and alive and surrounded by friends. "She's incredible," Megan said. "Grace, I mean. She's so confident, so happy. You and Caroline have done an amazing job." "We had good material to work with," Walter replied. "She's Lily's daughter through and through." "She really is." Megan's voice softened. "Sometimes when she laughs, I forget for just a second. I think it's Lily, and then I remember." "I know exactly what you mean." They sat in comfortable silence, two people connected by love for a woman who was no longer there. "The new trial made the news again," Megan said eventually. "They're saying Garrett might never get out, that the parole board will reject him every time." "Good," Walter said simply. "Do you ever think about him? Wonder what he's going through?" "Not anymore," Walter shook his head. "I used to, in the beginning. I wanted him to suffer, wanted him to feel even a fraction of what Lily felt. But now," he shrugged, "now I just don't care. He's irrelevant. He doesn't matter." "That's probably the middle tier," Megan agreed. "It took a long time to get here. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of anger that had nowhere to go. But eventually you realize that the best revenge is living well, raising Grace to be happy, keeping Lily's memory alive. That's what matters, not him." The cake was brought out with great ceremony, 6 candles blazed on top, surrounded by delicate sugar butterflies in every color. Grace's eyes went wide with wonder. Everyone sang, badly, enthusiastically, the way happy birthdays should be sung. Grace closed her eyes, made a wish, blew out all 6 candles in one mighty breath. The crowd cheered. Grace beamed. Walter felt his heart swell with pride and love, and something that might have been peace. "What did you wish for?" one of the children demanded. Grace shook her head. "I can't tell you. If you tell, it doesn't come true." But she looked at Walter as she said it, a secret look, a knowing look. He understood. The wish was about Lily. It was always about Lily. The party wound down as the sun began to set. Children were collected by tired parents. Thank yous were exchanged. Promises were made to do this again next year. By 7 o'clock, the backyard was empty except for the remnants of celebration. Deflated balloons, scattered plates, the bouncy castle slowly losing air. Grace sat on the porch steps, exhausted but happy, her new toys arranged around her like treasures. Walter sat beside her, handed her a cup of juice. "Good birthday?" he asked. "The best birthday," she confirmed. "Even better than last year, and last year was really good." "I'm glad, sweetheart." They watched the fireflies emerge, blinking their tiny lights across the lawn, just like they had when Lily was a girl, just like they would when Grace was grown. "Grandpa," Grace said, "can I ask you something important?" "Of course, when I'm older, when I'm a teenager or a grown-up. Will you tell me everything about my mommy? Even the sad parts? Even the parts about him?" Walter took a deep breath. This question had been coming. He had known it would arrive someday. He just hadn't expected it so soon. Your father, he said carefully. You can say the word. He's your father. I don't want him to be, Grace said quietly. I want you to be my father. You're the one who takes care of me. You're the one who loves me. I do love you, more than you can possibly know. But I'm your grandfather, and that's a special thing too. Grandfathers get to spoil you without having to be the bad guy. Grace smiled at that, but her eyes were still serious. Will you tell me the truth, though? When I'm ready? I don't want to find out from the internet or from kids at school. I want to hear it from you. Walter looked at his granddaughter, at the wisdom in her eyes that seemed far beyond her years, at the strength that had been passed down from Lily to Grace without either of them knowing. I've been writing it all down, he said. A book, the whole story, about your mother, about what happened, about everything. When you're old enough, you can read it, and then we'll talk about it together, for as long as you need. Grace nodded slowly. How old is old enough? 16, I think. That's what your grandmother and I decided. 16 is when you'll be ready to understand. That's 10 more years, Grace said. She counted on her fingers to be sure. That's a long time. It'll go faster than you think. And in the meantime, I'll tell you all the good stories, the happy memories, the things that made your mother special. And the butterflies? Walter smiled. Especially the butterflies. Carolyn appeared in the doorway. Time for bed, birthday girl. You've had a big day. Grace didn't protest. She was too tired to argue. She stood up, stretched her arms above her head. Then she wrapped herself around Walter, hugged him with all the strength in her small body. Thank you, Grandpa, she said, for everything, for the party, for the stories, for taking care of me. Thank you for being you, Walter replied. You're the best thing that ever happened to us. She pulled back, looked at him with those brown eyes, Lily's eyes. I love you, Grandpa, forever and always. The words hit him like a wave. The same words he had spoken to Lily, the same words he said at her grave, passed down through generations, connecting them all. I love you too, sweetheart, forever and always. Grace went inside with Caroline. Walter heard them climbing the stairs, the sound of water running in the bathroom, the muffled conversation of bedtime routines. He stayed on the porch, watching the stars come out one by one. 5 years since Lily's death. 5 years of grief and healing and unexpected joy. 5 years of raising a little girl who was equal parts sunshine and storm. It hadn't been easy. There were nights when the grief was overwhelming, days when the anger threatened to consume him, moments when he doubted whether he had the strength to continue. But he had continued, because Grace needed him, because Lily would have wanted him to, because life demanded to be lived, no matter how much pain it carried. Carolyn joined him on the porch, sat down in the rocking chair beside his. She asked about Garrett, Walter said, about hearing the whole truth when she's older. Carolyn sighed. I knew this day would come. She's too smart to be kept in the dark forever. I told her about the book, about waiting until she's 16. That's probably right, old enough to understand, young enough to still need us when she processes it. They rocked in silence for a while, the old familiar rhythm of chairs that had been part of this house for decades. Do you ever regret it? Carolyn asked softly. Taking this on at our age? Raising a child when we should be traveling and relaxing? Walter considered the question seriously. It deserved a serious answer. Not for 1 second, he said. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. With you, with Grace, living the life that Lily would have wanted for her daughter. Caroline reached for his hand, her fingers intertwined with his. I feel the same way, she said. Some days I'm exhausted. Some days I wish I could sleep past 6 in the morning. But then Grace smiles, or laughs, or calls me Grandma in that particular way she has. And I remember why we're doing this. Because we love her. Because we love her. And because Lily trusted us to take care of her. They sat together as the moon rose, full and bright, casting silver light across the lawn. The book you are writing, Carolyn said. How is it coming? Slowly, it's hard to put into words. Everything that happened, everything we lost, everything we found. Can I read it when it's finished? Walter nodded. I was hoping you would. You're part of the story too, the most important part. I couldn't have survived any of this without you. Carolyn squeezed his hand. We survived it together. That's what marriage is. That's what family is. Surviving together. A shooting star streaked across the sky, brief and brilliant. Make a wish, Carolyn whispered. Walter closed his eyes, sent his wish up to the heavens. He wished for Grace to grow up happy and whole. He wished for Caroline to stay healthy and strong. He wished for Lily to know how much she was loved, how much she was missed, how much her sacrifice had meant. And he wished for peace, true peace, the kind that comes from knowing you've done everything you could, given everything you had, loved with your whole heart. When he opened his eyes, the star was gone, but its light lingered in his memory. What did you wish for? Carolyn asked. I can't tell you. If you tell, it doesn't come true. She laughed softly. You sound just like Grace. I learned it from her. She teaches me something new every day. They stayed on the porch until the night grew cold, until the fireflies disappeared, until the house behind them was dark and quiet with sleep. Then they went inside together, hand in hand, the way they had walked through life for 40 years. In her room upstairs, Grace slept peacefully, the locket around her neck, the photo of her mother close to her heart, her dreams filled with butterflies and birthday cake and all the love in the world. And in the sky above, somewhere beyond the stars, Lily watched over them, her family, her legacy, her gift to the world. The revenge that shocked everyone wasn't violence, it wasn't destruction, it wasn't hate, it was simply the truth, told by people who loved her, preserved for a daughter who would carry her memory forward. It was justice, served by a father who refused to let her death go unacknowledged, who used every skill he had to expose the man who had betrayed her. It was love, passed down through generations, from mother to daughter, from grandparents to grandchild, unbroken and unbreakable. Lily had died alone. Her husband had let her die, but her story did not end there. Her story lived on in Grace, in Walter, in Caroline, in everyone who had known her and loved her and refused to forget. Some stories end in tragedy. This one ended in hope. Some losses are permanent, but some love is eternal. And as long as Grace wore that locket close to her heart, as long as Walter told his stories, as long as butterflies danced across summer lawns, Lily Mercer would never truly be gone. She lived on. In the daughter she never got to raise, in the family she never got to see flourish, in the love that survived against all odds, forever and always. And that is the story of a father's love that refused to let injustice stand. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the pain and the triumph and the hope, then do me a small favor. Hit that like button. It only takes a second, but it means the world to this channel. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you think. Did Walter do the right thing? What would you have done in his place? I read every single comment, and I love hearing from you. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, someone who believes in justice, someone who understands that love never truly dies. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. New stories drop every week. Stories of betrayal and redemption, stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, stories that will stay with you long after the final word. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening until the end. Until next time, take care of yourselves and the people you love, because you never know which moment will be your last.